Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here, and welcome to the second oral presentation of this M2 project for the P19 cohort. Yes, I'm just taking, no, I'm not, whoops. I just wanted to give you some elements again about this M2 project, so some rememberings. So you're gonna hear today 6 teams of 9 to 12 students that are organized as studios in order to present their work of conception and pre-production of a game. They have 4 months to do that, so you're gonna hear 6 games today. Here we are at the second presentation. So we are 1 month ago we had the first. So it's we're gonna see the progression in these months. We are approximately at the mid term of this 4 months work. And you, the jury of professionals, are here to give them feedbacks concerning that, because they have in 2 months we're gonna meet again for this final presentation. So many thanks to you. Thank you for being here online, and please feel free to ask all your questions, give all your feedbacks to them. It's really useful for help them progress on this work. You have the link to the evaluation file, so please fill it within a few days if you can. So if you can send your feedbacks within next week, it would be great. So thank you all. Maybe enough of my talk. Each team will have 15 to 20 minutes to present where they are, their project, and we're gonna have for each about 20 minutes of exchange then after. So please, let's welcome the first team, Shock.
Wait for a minute until the presentation opens. Okay. So the time is counted, so run for your life as fast as possible, switch between dimensions to survive, welcome, and be prepared for Shock. Shock is a third-person parkour game for 1 player. It will be available on PC and will offer a game experience of 6 to 7 hours. It wants the player to feel the movement, to feel small and vulnerable, yet agile and capable of overcoming a cold and hostile environment. So our game has 3 specifics. First, it's a fast-paced experience. Then we are working on the gigantism for the settings and the environments. Finally, our main mechanic is based on a double layer of levels, as you will see in this gameplay video. As stated before, one of our KSPs is the layer switch. the ability to constantly switch between layers and find creative and fun ways of solving parkour problems and improve your time on a level. Switching layers will change the logic with which you will approach the environment, as you will get more control in the first layer and more slipperiness and momentum in the second layer. There will also be environmental elements and hazards that are specifics to both layers. You will also have access to different abilities. Your moveset will slightly change as you switch. We, however, work on the moveset remaining coherent and intuitive, as we will show you right now. In the first layer, players can move with a lot of control, jump, run on walls, well-timed falls, slide forward, and the layer's special ability, a dash, going toward the camera, acting like a sort of snappy double jump. But now, what if they end up in the air with their dash used up and no apparent solution to get back to full speed? They will switch, passing toward the next layer and gaining access to another unique mechanic, the grappling hook, catching POIs and brutally dragging the character toward them, allowing them to move through the air and gain mobility. Although this layer won't be without danger, as a lot of surfaces will appear as kill zones and will force the player to switch back to layer 1 before they get swallowed by them. They will thus be able to juggle between layers whenever they need. Another brand new feature available in layer 2 will be the ability to glide whenever you hit a glidable surface. It will give you even more speed, allowing you to glide even on walls and ceilings, but making it hard to keep control of the momentum, exposing you to the risk of diving into kill zones.
Our target are mid and hardcore players between 15 and 30 years old who mainly plays on PC. They are interested in parkour game or fast-paced platformer, but they may also play fast FPS. They mostly play at home during the evening or the weekends. Their gaming sessions are rather long, between 1 and 3 hours. Their main motivations to play are fluid and fast movement mechanics that feels and looks cool, a challenging experience that offers a lot of masterings and replayability, and finally, a level design with alternative paths that let the player express their skills and their creativity.
Now, in order to let this audience fully enjoy the game, we choose to divide it into several levels, unlockable one by one. These levels are themselves divided into 5 to 10 sub-levels, and each taking between 1 and 3 minutes to complete. It will be mandatory to finish all the sub-levels at least once to unlock the next level in order to create a sense of macro progression. For the vertical slice, it will consist of 1 to 2 of these sub-levels, including a tutorial phase to get to grips with the various mechanics. The player's aim is to go from point A to point B, indicated by a column of light. They simply need to get inside to complete the sub-level. After finishing every level, players will be taken to a leaderboard and attributed a rank symbolized by a medal. Upon gaining medals, they will be rewarded with the possibility of seeing a leaderboard or racing against their goals to improve their time. We are planning on creating both a friends leaderboard using Steam database and a global one for everyone playing the game. As they progress, players might find some collectibles scattered throughout the sub-levels. These are audiologs, and they will tell some little parts of the lore. The players will just have to pass them by, and the audiologs will play without cutting them in the middle of a run. Speaking of lore, here is a short presentation of it. For as long as anyone can remember, humankind has been running away from the swarm, an enormous cloud of insects. But a few thousand years ago, humans discovered gigantic creatures fast enough to outrun the swarm, and therefore built their homes on their back. But as time went on, these cities became too heavy for the creatures, and they were forced to slow down, allowing the swarm to become a threat once again. Seeing this, our protagonist Bastian, a prophet of a religion based on movement, decided to take things in hand and headed off to lighten the creatures to restore their original speed, even if it means that they need to destroy the cities.
Let's now introduce the artistic direction, beginning with the first layer, the Frost Brutalism, which is obviously still work in progress for now. In this layer, we want the player to feel the gigantism with a cold ambience and minimalist monolith. The challenge here will be the lighting. The level has to be visually interesting with pretty basic shapes and also has to guide the player. Regarding sound, cold and immutability should be felt. The huge reverb should emphasize the feeling of being overwhelmed by the architecture. The biting frost will be represented by a non-complete spectrum lacking of low mid frequencies in order to make the high end naturally sharper.
The second layer is way more abstract. It is a constant danger to the player and speed-oriented. We therefore wanted to represent it in saturated colors with outlines to amplify short-range contrasts and limit long-range visibility in order to balance the speed possibilities offered to the player. This layer will sound heavier and more muffled. It should sound a bit more in the face with strong low-mid to bring contrast with the first layer. The atmosphere should sound thicker to bring another feeling of being little in the middle of the huge.
For the sound design, we want to accompany our character's journey through the gigantic environment, with a really dynamic and responsive soundscape containing subtle ambiances. It will be efficient and juicy for the movement and for the powerful abilities. This will allow players to really feel their run. Here is a quick work in progress video of what we have for the moment, considering movements. Regarding music, we have chosen to represent both the layers with sound corresponding to their design identity. Time signatures will also change across both layers. Consequently, you'll hear a fast synth pop in the first layer and its industrial twisted version in the second. It will lead implementation to let you hear different versions of the music depending on the layer you are in. Some instruments and melodies will also change to match the player's actions.
The layer swap effect is a big challenge, as it represents the avatar's ability to change layers and is intended to bridge the gap between two very distinct visual treatments, with very tight timing and almost no cooldown. We therefore decided that the effect would be composed of a growing mask for the post-process and materials, a sphere representing the activation distance of the power switch, and an exploding glass visual to recall the duality of the layers and the change of universe, as well as adding a cool visual that the player can rush through. And here is how it looks like and sounds like in the game at the moment.
Talking for the character now, as we don't want our game to be the fantastic adventure of the UE5 mannequin, we are currently working on a character with a strong identity. The two main aspects of the character are the traveling and his fanaticism about it. We are aiming for a semi-realistic render for Bastian, and here are the first pass of sculpting. With the large amount of moveset needed in Shock, building a good topology is essential, and we are actually working on it. Bastian will obviously not stay naked. After retopology, another pass of sculpting and detailing and clothing, the character will have a lot more to say just by seeing him.
Regarding the default control, with the keyboard you can move with ZQSD, jump with space, slide with C, and go to the last checkpoint with R. With the left click of the mouse, you can either dash in Reality 1 or use your grapple in Reality 2. Finally, you can switch between Reality with the right click of the mouse. To ensure every player has a comfortable experience, Shock will be gamepad compatible, and you will be able to completely remap every input of the game, including menu inputs.
The multi-layered aspect of the game may come with a few risks regarding performances, as the game offers two worlds to travel through at once. To tackle that issue, most of the topology is actually persistent and stay unchanged while switching from one layer to another. The idea is to share as much data as possible between layers and avoid redundancy. In the meantime, some specific objects do react to the change of layer and, in response, update their behaviors, colliders, and visuals.
For the accessibility, the main feature we thought of are difficulty setting. Our main option would be to toggle on and off the enemies so the player could take its time to learn if needed. For those who struggle with orientation problems, we want to implement a high-end thread feature which reveals the line between the arrival of the level and the player. We also want to create an auto-camera system that follows the player movement. This would lighten the cognitive load of the player who can focus on moving only. Finally, for the sound, we would like to have as much parameters as possible and to offer some audio balancing presets.
Fast-paced parkour games is a niche genre particularly liked by time trial-driven players. At the beginning of the project, we studied other games of the same genre to visualize what kind of experience we're aiming for and what is expected by our target. Here, you can see Shock compared to its competitors. We view the project as a fast-paced experience that offers a main pass with some shortcuts for more replayability. As said previously, Vertical Slice will only focus on levels inside the first zone. For the full release, we imagine it to be premium with 10 zones, each one offering challenging levels to our players. And for the players who crave for more challenges after finishing the game, we are thinking of making the game DLC compatible with extra level to discover. So you may have understood it. This production is quite ambitious. The triple I or double A kind of ambitious. For 2 years of production, Vertical Slice included and 12 members, we estimated the production cost of around 945,000 euros and a selling price of 29 euros. To be safe, we should sell around 94,000 copies. In order to find some fundings, we would like to work with a publisher that targets small independent teams like us. We thought about Annapurna Interactive since they seem to finance AA and III projects. We thought about crowdfunding as additional financement, especially if we manage to gather a highly motivated community. We plan also to use some social medias and Discord as main communication tools. The goal is to share major updates to as many potential players as possible and to create a special place for the most interested ones. Since fast-paced games are particularly watched on Twitch, we could even get some visibility offering copies of our game to streamers. On our Discord server, players will have access to more information and can even share their thoughts about the game to our developer team. If we gather enough players, it could even be a valuable resource for online playtests. And that's all for our presentation. Thanks for listening to us. We'll now be glad to answer your question.
Thank you very much. For the people online, please raise your hand numerically if you have questions, and maybe we can start with you. So, Océane, if you want to start. We don't hear you so far. I don't know if you're speaking. I'm just looking at the régie. Océane, are you speaking? You can write in the chat if you are. Sorry for that. So maybe I will take another question so we can see why we don't hear you. Is there a question, remark here? Yeah, thank you. Can you present yourself? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jeanne, game artist freelance. I just had a simple question, and maybe you talked about it, but I didn't get it. Which features are there in the beginning of the game, and what will the player discover as they continue to play?
Is this working? Yes. Hi. Hi. Thank you for your question. We actually didn't really use any skill tree or character progression, as the goal of the game is to offer like a multiplicity of experience through the sub level. But we are not aiming at scenaristic progression or as a character development, just to provide like a toy you can play with. In such as like in games such as like Neon White or Almost, like games you are looking to learn a toy you already have in ready in hand at the beginning of the game. Was that your question?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me with the mask? Yeah, okay. Hello, I'm Clémentine Plissonnier. I'm a freelance game designer. I also teach at Enjmin, so you know me. Yes, that's incredible. I wanted to ask about the enemies, because you mentioned enemies, but it was not included in your like game feel dimension presentation. So will there be a fighting element in the game, or will it be just dodging? It wasn't really clear.
Right. I get it. Thank you. Thank you for your question. It's actually something we should have developed, but we modified a lot of stuff in the scope very recently. The enemies will probably not be present in the vertical slice, but there won't be any fighting elements in the game. The enemies are actually pursuers, like in the form of a swarm we evoked in the lore, and that will be present in like one of the layers, and will force you to switch layers regularly, but there won't be any fighting element in the game. What we call enemies are actually more environmental hazards.
Thank you. Antoine, online?
Yes.
Merci, super.
Hello, Antoine, founder at Pigment Studio. I have a small question about the layer switch. What happens if you switch layer when the character is inside an object?
Tu peux lui répondre.
Sorry. Actually, the two layers share a same layout, 3D layout, so you shouldn't be able to be inside an object and change layers. So it's not really a problem, I think.
Okay, so I think I maybe misunderstood something, because I thought there was some specific part for the different layers.
Is it working? Yes. So actually, each layers will have the same layouts. What will be different is what you can do with these layouts. For example, the thing you can grapple will be present in both layers to show you that if you switch layer, you can do this, but you can't grapple if you're in layer 1. So you can be stuck in objects if you switch layer.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Mylène from Raccoon Business. I do marketing. First, congrats for the positional grade you make with the other games like Ghost Runner, etc. It's great. I have kind of two remark. First, can you die? Because you never mentioned that. Like, can you just fall and die? And the second question, it's quite similar to the previous one. It's about the layers. As it's fast-paced, I have trouble to imagine like how should I plan to change layers. I think it will probably miss readability because you just go fast and then you have to try to check if you should change layers because you can glide or stuff like that. So I'm wondering if it will not be a good idea to have like a pause when you can just pause the game to check what is around you on the 2 layers, or if you can do it before starting the game, like exploring the level, checking the 2 layers to try to plan a path or something.
Comme tu le sens.
So, about this, that's where the fun of the game is, finding new routes and exploring the levels, retrying them to see if, if I take this platform this way, maybe I could go faster. So it's not planned to have a pause in the game to explore, but the levels will be replayable. That's the main focus for the replayability of the levels. So there is no pause planned in the middle of the game, but you can always like retry the levels and see what works best.
Okay, thank you. As I saw it, you can see this like a Trackmania track where like you try and you hit the border of the road. You just have to restart and try again, as I saw it.
And to answer you the first question you had, you can actually die because there are kill zones in some layers, and environmental hazard you can run in, but you can't die in a fight. But even when you die, the point of the game is to replay and be able to quickly retry the game, as the whole point is replayability and learning all about the level. The game is about like training. So yeah, you can totally like make a first run on a level to visit it, to establish a layout, to try to conceive a route, and then try to execute it. Does this answer your questions?
Hello, Lucas. I run my own studio. I have actually one question, one remark. First, thanks. As I said, I was really excited on the previous session about your game. Now I'm even more excited and I really want to try it again. I have one question though. You're mentioning replayability as one of your pillars. Do you assume replayability will only come from leaderboards, actually? Replayability coming only from leaderboards? Or do you have any other hints on how you can improve replayability?
No, actually, that's our main point of replayability, and we rely on several kinds of leaderboardship, score marking, and also on community creating to entertain this sense of progression by comparison with other players.
One note, one idea, throwaway. You were mentioning Trackmania. One of the strengths of Trackmania is the UGC and the fact that they allow players to generate their own routes and their own levels. I think this could be something you could at some point think about for your game, because I definitely think your game has this potential, to allow players to create their own route, share them with other players, etc., etc. This could bring a very strong engagement and / replayability layer to the game. Yeah, no,
this is a very good idea. It's duly noted.
And the second one was regarding the budget of the game. You were mentioning 945,000 euros for the production. I assume these only take salaries into account. Watch out about this when you're trying to make a game, and especially if you're launching your studio, you will have some hidden cost, extra cost. So watch out, just take into account that you may have some hidden costs and you have to, at some point, anticipate them.
Actually, I calculated those costs at first, but people advised me to only put here the more of the project. In
Just
total.
for the production, not the whole the side. Yeah, okay, I understand.
Yes.
So it makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Aida del Solar. I want only to focus because it's very interesting. I think you are doing a fantastic job. Just a little tip. Your main character has these holes in the ears. And this is a historical character in the Incas. So the noble Incas, they called it the big ears guys because they had ears like this. So this character has to show that he comes from a very powerful background, because if you Googleize, you will find the ears they had to wear because it was very painful. So this backstory about the pain they have to carry in their ears can be very interesting on the psychological character design, because this is very beautiful to see, but normally they were wearing this in the sacrifice, human sacrifice feasts. Everyday life, they had ears like this. But I think you can work on this backstory only to see how he carries this. It's very important, and historically is very very well known. They call the big ears people. So and it was a big empire. So maybe you should have some inspiration in this field. Thank you very much.
Just thank you for the advice, and I will take this for the rest of the production. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. Stefan Natkin, vintage producer. I have some remarks which some have been already given first. My main remark and my main recommendation for the next presentation is that I am not convinced that you have enough gameplay mechanism for the time. I did not make the multiplication of 4 minutes by the number of sub-layers multiplied by the number of layers, but if you want, I think it's several hours. If you want to make a game with several hours, maybe you have the ideas of enough gameplay, mechanism, or narrative progression, I don't know, but next time, through the vertical slice, you will not have the time of demonstrating the demonstration of the long run of your game. So you have somewhere to convince the people who will be there that you have sufficiently sufficient number of mechanisms in your head to make it. My second remark, if you have mentioned both crowdfunding and social network, crowdfunding is a way to increase the number of people in your community. You don't get any money, or a very few amount of money through crowdfunding. The crowdfunding is related, so if you think your game through a community of players with a leaderboard and things like that, you have also in your budget to look how you manage live ops operation after you have launched the game and you go to the first DLC, etc. And my last remark probably is that you are too cheap. To make a AA game, 1.5 million is a minimum and generate between 2 to 3 million. So if you are to this point, it's probably that you are missing something, or you are not really in the scope of a AA game. And I think that's all. Yes, the last question, I don't know really your market, but are you sure that most of the players are playing on PC? Don't you have some players on console? And did you think to make a console version of your game?
So for that, we looked a little into this. There are indeed some console players, but the majority is on PC. But yeah, we thought about maybe release the game on PS5 or Xbox Series, but it's something we have to think a little more about.
Hello, Gaston, user researcher at Ubisoft Bordeaux. First of all, thanks for the presentation. It was a really good choice, I think, of you to really embrace the fast pace vision and intention of your game, so to get rid of the slow motion layer and stuff like that. So I think that's a good idea. I had one question, though. It's more like an ergonomic question. Do you have any idea already to how to sign the player that some platforms will be kill zone in one layer and will not be kill zone in the other, or stuff like that? You know, to visualize, indicate the players that he has to switch layers.
We are working on shaders to indicate the dead zone thing. We doesn't have visual cues for the moment to indicate the main path, and it will mainly be a shader to indicate.
Okay, because for now, with the gray block prototype, I think you can easily do stuff to indicate the players, but once you will have all the art and environment and stuff like that, you might have a challenge on the readability of your levels and the fact that maybe it's an intention of you to want the players to do some trials and errors, so to die intentionally and learn the level like that, or maybe you don't want that, but you have to be clear on what level of readability you want for the players. Just saying.
We didn't take decisions for that for the moment, but we are aware that the level art has an important role for this aspect of the game.
Thank you.
Hello, Timothée Saunier from Ubisoft. At the beginning, you were mentioning audio collectibles, right? Is it going to play during a session?
Hi, thank you for your question. We're still wrapping our head about these audio collectibles because narration is really not the focus of the game, but we're trying to find like a slippery way to not too slippery way to transmit some lore anyway. So this is still a little interrogation mark, a question mark, but we at the moment, yes, you will hear the audio logs synchronizing with the music and then have access to them in some sort of a compendium inside of a menu.
Okay, so maybe my remark would be, if you add this, it could be a nice thing, but be careful, because with your game we need to be 100% focused on what we are doing, and adding this during a session could be a distraction more than anything else.
Yeah, that's something we're currently considering.
Thank you very much. Please congrats the team once again. And let's welcome the next one. So Monster Inside, if you want to come to join us. Let's encourage them, please.
The siren of high school begin. All of the students get locked down, except for Clémentine and Sacha, the twins, who stayed in the corridors. What was supposed to be an anti-monster exercise turns out to be a nightmare. Welcome in Monster Inside. In the art team, we have Rémi, Adjé, and Hélène. Sam is our UX designer and user researcher. Gorik is our sound designer and music composer. As our programmers, we have Tanguy and Mathieu. Marie and Maelo are taking care of the game, level, and narrative design. And I am the producer of the project.
So, as a reminder, Monster Inside is an asymmetrical horror game for 2 players with a cooperative gameplay. The experience will be available in a local co-op mode first, and an online co-op mode will be added later. It aims to release on PC and consoles with a total duration of around 4 to 6 hours.
In Monster Inside, both players will have to flee the Monster Inside the school. Why? To reveal the awful truth behind the origin to the outside world. But beware of the monsters and the noise you make on your way out. If they catch one player, you may have a chance to save them. If they catch both, it's game over.
Now, what are the reasons for potential players to buy our game? First, to get frightened together by an horrific narration with many cliffhangers along the way. Secondly, because asymmetrical gameplay reinforces the link between the 2 characters and the 2 players. It also creates replayability. And thirdly, to enjoy the mood of an alternative universe inspired by French high schools in the 1990s, with a teen movie vibe.
Now, let's talk about the context and universe of our game. In this universe, a siren regularly sounds to warn of the appearance of monsters. Their origin is still unknown, and humanity had learned how to react safely to those apparitions. Our game takes place in a French high school where players will discover the truth beyond the monsters. Teenagers are turning into their worst complex when they're too lonely and misunderstood. The adults hide the truth and awkwardly look for a way to reverse the transformations at the risk of hurting the students. With Monster Inside, we explore the teenage crisis and the difficulty adults and teenagers have in understanding each other.
We want the story to take place in a universe set between reality and fantasy. The humans would be represented in 2D, whereas the monsters would be in 3D, to create a contrast between them. Like our main references, Inside and Little Nightmares, we want the game to have thoughtful staging and light effects.
For the environment, we want to move away from an atmosphere plunged into darkness and prefer to play with the play of shadows and twilight, creating an environment lit by colored lights to contrast with the less saturated decor. In addition, we want to have warm places atmosphere and offer a break, which is also a moment of crafting. This more comfortable dynamic could graphically be interrupted by the light, which begin to flash and to plunge the room in a bluish darkness and now regain tension. And evolving in this environment, the twins, Clémentine and Sacha. The characters have strong and contrast identities, which are part of an alternative universe, close to the one we might know, with retro inspirations. Clémentine is a transgender woman who begins to assert herself and transcribe her punk style. She wears a CNAS fanny pack demonstrating an interest in science. This desire remains discreet, and she sometimes wraps herself up in her mother's scarf, as if to isolate herself from the environment around her. As for Sacha, he seeks to be a conventional figure and fulfill the protective role of his late father, to whom he was very close. He wears his shoes in his memory and cherishes them. He's a sporty guy who is part of the school gym club.
Their strong identity will also be represented through sound design and audio system. In fact, we are currently casting some professional voice actors to find the voice and acting that will best fit our characters. And in terms of sound design, the sound of movement, clothes, and the stuff they carry will also help to make them unique. Moreover, footstep sounds with dance reverb will allow to feel how small they are in the gloomy space. And finally, to help bring them alive, the breath system will allow the player to feel the character breath and the effort and the stress. So here is a demo of this system, which allows to blend smoothly between 3 speeds and fade in and out when the character talks.
Sasha, there is a monster right behind this door.
As you understood, players will play as Clémentine and Sasha, twin siblings. Clémentine is an introvert rebellious punk who loves chemistry, while Sasha is a more popular joke who secretly loves doing urban exploration. We said asymmetrical gameplay, right? Let's talk about it. Clémentine can craft and throw firecrackers, starting by the noisy claque-doigt and then being able to use the dangerous Big Bang. Sasha will lockpick doors and lockers in order to gather resources for her sister to craft and finding them a way out. He will use basic lockpicking kits and will then be able to use a crowbar.
Let's now dive a bit deeper into Anger's mechanics. For most part of the game, both players will share the same camera. We're still working on it, but the camera is currently adapting to our player's movement and has a slight difference if you're facing the unknown or turning your back on it. You may never know who might be standing behind you.
Here is a prototype made in Engine. So the purple block is Clémentine, who throws firecrackers. And the green block is Sasha, who can lockpick doors. You can see the monster represented by the blue block. So the players are able to hide and will distract the monster by making noise. So Sasha is lockpicking the door. As you will see, the players are also able to run together. That made them run faster, and it's represented by a small UI circle. And then they finally escaped.
Now that you've seen a short gameplay situation, we want to put an emphasis on cooperation, which requires communication and a sense of timing. This tends to create stress and panic in our player's mind, but also for our characters. Let me introduce you the stress gauge. When a twin is overwhelmed by stress, by feeling lonely in a stressful environment, they find themselves stuck and unable to move freely. The other twin must then come back and calm their first sibling. If they don't, it may end in a game over. Players will have visual, sound, and haptic cues to know how high their stress is and avoid falling into this state too often. This gauge will be useful both in terms of gameplay and narration, which will know what we will focus on.
So we'll use barks as feedbacks for the players to understand what they're doing, and each character will have two variations of the same bark according to their stress. Barks are written to be compatible between Clémentine barks and Sasha's barks. For example, when Sasha opens the door, he can say, "Open sesame." This bark works alone, but it's also possible for Clémentine to add, "Nice work," which also works as an only bark. We also have different dialogue phases, where we can control key events, like when the monster will attack the player or not. Players will not be limited during dialogues as much as possible. Some dialogues are punctual, for example, a character can react to an element of the environment, or dialogues happens during what could be cinematics, with still gameplay, but less. It allows us to build up tension and control the staging of the storytelling. Here is a mock-up of a dialogue in-game. The subtitle could be quite classical with the name of the character speaking at the beginning of the line, and to avoid any confusion, we'll use a small UI to mark the character currently speaking.
Remember when we talked about the stress gauge? Well, it has some consequences on the narration too. According to which twin was the most stressed during the last gameplay session, there will be slight changes into the overall narration. A same event can affect one twin or the other before going back to a more linear path. These events and how the gauge will be used by our players will also have an impact on
the end of our game. We have two possible endings involving the future of the monsters players now know to be transformed teenagers. First ending involves the twins turning both into monsters to stay together and condemning all the monsters inside the school. The second ending means they are separated to free the monsters and only one of them will turn into a monster. There's 3 different ways for players to reach one of these endings. Either their stress is similar, which means they have access to the first ending and stay together. Either one of them has more stress. If it's Sasha, Clémentine will have to choose between staying with her brother or stay separated to free the monster. If it's Clémentine, Sacha will have to choose between staying with his sister or stay separated to free the monster. In any case, the choice is involving the future of monsters locked in the high school. This brings us to tell you more about our principal monster. We must warn you that the following content are depicting bloody concepts with holes and may be triggering.
The monster we design will serve as a metaphor for adolescent insecurities. Here you have 3 proposals that were made for the narrative design of the monster, which arise from other concepts. In the vertical slice, the main monster represents the transformation of a teenager who was overwhelmed with pain by her periods and by the injection that this embodies in the society. The idea is therefore to suggest this element and to represent a blood monster and transcribe feminine intimacy in the manner of Georgia O'Keeffe through the floral form. And the team choice was made for this concept for reason of more readable silhouette and more concrete technical apprehension and horrific staging.
And here's the first 3D blockout of our monster. We've rigged it to test the implementation of procedural animation of certain movements. This will complement the other handmade animation and add an unpredictable aspect to the creature's movement. But bear in mind that this model and its rig are first test, so they'll have to evolve to better match the 2.5D aspect of our game, as did Planet of Lana, for example.
In the environment, X will be elements of contamination spread by our main monster. In relation to its nature, here are some proposals that have been made. This will reinforce the graphic links between horror and narration. The eggs pulse and emit light. They are also a sign of the passage of the monsters. Here is a concept of an atmospheric setting of these eggs and in the environment.
As we mentioned, monsters were previously humans, which makes our main monster behave like a frightened teenager looking for help. She can't see very well, so she focuses on the sounds instead. On this basis, we design its AI by dividing the sounds into 2 categories. Small sounds, like a broken object, claque-doigt, that draws a bit of the monster's attention, and big sounds, like running, or big bangs, or else using the crowbar, that makes the monster run towards it.
With all these elements explained, let's now explore the game as a whole. Our story takes place during a whole day at school, during what was supposed to be an anti-monster exercise. Our vertical slice is happening around the end of the first half of the story. Players are about to unlock a new firecracker and will use it to make a first attempt to reach the exit, but will be stopped by a friendly teenager who turns into a monster in front of them.
Our narrative structure consists of 4 episodes of approximately 1 hour. You might wonder why this division in chapters. Our intentions were focused on reproducing a teen series vibe. With this in mind, a story fragmented in meaningful chapters that each generate tension and build up towards the final resolution was a great option. It also helps narration to be delivered the way we want it to be. Waiting a bit between the chapters would be best to enjoy the story and the development of our characters, as our themes and plots are subject to a time of reflection and to theories. You might also wonder why this episode length. It allows our 2 players to enjoy short game sessions, 1 to 2 hours maximum, and also to let them match their schedules that are not always compatible, as finding the time to play with someone else can be harder than finding the time to play alone. Furthermore, shorter game sessions can help prevent players getting used to the horror.
And here's the details of the episodes. The gameplay of both characters is evolving through the episodes. Players will also discover new places with new level design mechanics. And finally, each one ends on a narrative cliffhanger to make the players longing for what's next. And by using these codes used in TV series, we want to arouse the desire to play the next episode.
Let's explain more precisely the structure of, for example, the second episode, where our vertical slice technically takes place. It's deeply inspired by TV show elements, starting with a short and skippable reminder of previous events of the last episode. A short and simple onboarding let players take control back in hand. The following events lead to a narrative progression and evolution of the difficulty as players progress through the level, and we then face a narrative cliffhanger. At the very end of the level, players can discover a summary of the consequences their stress had on the narration in comparison with other players' statistics.
For vertical slice, players will already know the basics. The twins will hear the anti-monster siren while arriving to the science floor. They'll have to intrude into the preparatory lab if they want to defend themselves. This launches the gameplay phase. By infiltrating the first lab, they will try not to get caught by the monster, having to make good use of sound distraction and hiding places. Then it is time to get what the players are here for. In this secure room, they will unlock the new firecracker, but oh no, it seems like the monster managed to enter the lab. A small cinematic will then guide the players toward the next part. They now have to escape towards the exit. New stealth puzzle and mechanic combination will challenge the players. And then they will be able to run to the staircase. When they're just a few steps away from freedom, they find one of their friends changing into a monster in front of them. This marks the end of both our vertical slice and episode 2. And now, let's discover how this context gives life to our game's look.
So here's a test we created in Blender to get an idea of the game's final look. And as already mentioned, we'll have a mix of 3D and 2D. And the structure and larger elements of the scenario will be 3D models, while the smaller elements will be plain with a minimum of geometry. And to make the integration of plane in three-dimensional space more harmonious, we've set up a normal map generated from an alpha map. Then, for texturing, we use a simple projection for 3D objects, as the back of most of these models never appear on screen. And for other 2D assets, we create an atlas of the different props, mostly in orthographic view. And here's another lighting test with 3D asset only. It's an earlier test, but it's nicely showing the use of silhouette object in the foreground and more play with depth and parallax effects. And finally, to finish talking about the environment visual, here's a graphical test done in Unreal Engine 5.
Now, let's talk about our target. On the accessibility subject, the main features we want to focus on are the following: full remapping of controls, including menu navigation and gameplay. Don't have any puzzle or gameplay involving only color-based solutions. Subtitles for every gameplay and narration involve sound, possibilities to choose game difficulty level. We also have 2 mandatory additional pillars chosen by the team. A content warning system available at the first start of the game, and a no-time system for the firecrackers mechanic. We are going to see details on difficulty and content warning pillars. For the difficulty pillar, we are planning to choose between 2 variations, an assist mode like in Celeste, or a difficulty choose system based on game mechanics and not overall game difficulty like in the remake of System Shock. For our content warning system, we get inspired by 2 games. In Dead Space, the game indicates you areas of gameplay susceptible to disturb you based on gore. And in Flat Eye, at the first start of the game, you are reminded that the game can have disturbing subjects. It's possible during the scenes concerned to skip them if you want. Let's get back to our target audience. Some changes happened since the last time presentation. After our first draft, we wanted to get a more precise and clear view on our target audience. To do this, we carried out an observation and 2 online surveys. One on player habits in cooperative games and the other on player habits in horror games. With the result of our analysis, we managed to define our target players as the Bard profile from Counting Foundry profile types. That represents social players who want to chat and interact with other players. They long for game worlds that are rich with lore, stories, and difficulty and discovery.
To better accommodate our audience, we designed the game in 4 chapters. Furthermore, this teen series vibe and episodical narration appeared as a marketing opportunity. The game will be sold as a whole. You can only buy once this bundle of 4 episodes. But to launch our game, we would release the 4 chapters progressively on a short period of time. Each release on Steam would be presented as a new rendezvous for our growing community. The goal would be to create hype around the game during this short period and gather a community of players who would be rewarded for playing the episodes at their release, with some exclusive content, for example. Compared to an episodical model, this model would make it more secure on the economical aspect and still help us to meet our experience definition. We conducted a few studies on our competitors with the cooperative aspect in mind. We split those competitors into 2 categories: cooperative horror games and asymmetrical cooperation games. It proves us the market exists for both of those categories. And the mix of those 2 kinds of games is even illustrated by the soon-to-come Little Nightmare 3. To produce this game, our production unit is the creation of 1 chapter that would last between 4 and 5 months. The production of our 4 episodes, including the vertical slice that stands like a pre-production, would take approximately 21 months. That would set the delivery date to July 2025. Thanks a lot for your attention. Now time for questions and feedbacks.
Thank you. So first question.
Hello, Clémentine Plissonnier, freelance game designer. I have a game design question for you. So when I saw your presentation, I was wondering what will be your the various situations that you could create, because for now you only showed us one, that is distracting a monster while I'm lockpicking a door. And finally, you decided, instead of showing more diversity in your situations, that you wanted to add a feature, which is the stress gauge. I'm not sure that is the best way to add diversity to your gameplay, and I can explain why. You need to see a conference that I saw, which is about social play. It's named Crafting the Social Play of Sky, Children of the Light. And you need to see that because it talks a lot about what feels like cooperation in a game between 2 players and what feels like constraint and stress. And feeling obligated to do something for another people, and because this person is not doing as well as you in the game, can feel like a not so good thing to have in your game. And I would emphasize that too, because sanity gauge, it's a very common thing in games. It's not a very tasteful thing. Especially if you become a monster when you're too stressed. When you lose sanity, you don't become a monster, and the metaphor can be a bit harsh. So I would be very careful about that. It's a trope in video games, and it's not a good one. For those 2 reasons, a gameplay one and a society one, maybe, I would advise to try to find something else, or maybe try to be more linear with that. In A Plague Tale in Innocence, you build your relationship with a super annoying little brother, but it works more because the super annoying little brother reacts to very precise facts that are in the narration, like he learns that her mother is dead. And so the reaction is more comprehensible, and that creates empathy. Whereas if the reaction of stress is only caused because your friend played worse than you, I would be worried about that. So yeah, not sure about the state of your game design, and I would love you to try to do more level design and iterate on your gameplay situations.
Thank you for your feedback. So maybe it wasn't clear in this presentation, but actually when you're stressed, you're not transforming. It's like you're having a panic attack, which is more human. Things to have, but I do agree with you that it may be not a good experience to feel forced to do something because you feel your other player is playing bad.
Sorry, I was saying that I felt that your game endings are still influenced by the fact that you were more or less stressed, and that a player or two players characters could become monsters because of that.
Yes, but yes, it is. There's no but, and it's something we are aware that it's tricky things in our narration, and we are trying to manage a way to not antagonize so much the monster, because it's a really tricky metaphor to have. But in fact, we want to create more compassion for the monster, and it's quite in our mind it's the best end to change, and it's more a metaphor of growing up and accepting yourself, and but we are really aware that it can be misinterpreted, and we will work on that, and also we will think about this a constraint of playing and being forced to reanimate your friend. We also have in mind the idea of combining the mechanics that we already have. For example, you need to make something explode in order to being able to lockpick it, and we want to find combination of the mechanics we already have.
Hello, Gaston, user researcher at Ubisoft Bordeaux. Thanks for the presentation. I have two questions. The first one is really straightforward. What happens when only one player get caught by the monster? Is it like game over instantly, or does the other one have to revive him in some way?
Yes. Okay. So it's not game over. The other one has to come and revive the first one.
Okay.
Just like the actual stress gouge.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And the second one is more like a remark. I think you have a huge challenge specifically on the horror genre that you are aiming to. A huge challenge in the pacing of the game in terms of stress and calm situations and stuff like that. And I just wondered if you searched into that, like literature, if you had some information on how to deal with this in terms of user experience, to have some calm situation and sometimes some stressful, where players have to run and they don't have to solve some puzzles, just run to create a huge dopamine of stress.
Okay, so we did ask psychologists about how the fear and stress play into like our player's mind, to have this kind of rhythm that will change during the gameplay session, to have some moments of breath, you can come down and then you will run again, and then you will have some puzzles. We have the thought of this, and we have met someone to help us like going into it.
Okay, but really cool. I think since you are really aiming to the horror genre of the thing, it could be cool to have that in the presentation, just to show that you know what you are talking about and what the type of game you are making, and how to handle all the overall user experience in terms of pacing in your game. But thank you.
Hello, Timothée again. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels to me that since last time you had in what you presented for the gameplay element a bar representing the link between the two twins, and it feels to me that you replaced that with the stress bar. And I must admit I'm a bit sad about that, because I think it was a really smart way to link the gameplay and the narration, and especially since you are playing twins, and we know that a link between twins can be strong for better and for worse. And it was an elegant way, I think, to talk about that with just a gameplay element. So could you maybe explain why you changed that?
So yeah, it's clearly the same mechanic, but changed in a stress way. It was maybe to avoid the classic cliché of twin being connected, that it can be annoying for some twins that we asked about. And also it was, I think how to explain. It was also a way to maybe, it was allowing us more situation of gameplay, and we felt that it was less an excuse to limit the camera, because as it was at first, and it was more creating, the point was to create more stress situations, and being able to manage this resource. It's actually more a resource now, but we are aware that in the narrative it can be misinterpreted, and it can be tricky.
Okay, thanks.
But the goal is still the same of you have a condition of your stress going up when you're too far from your other sibling, and but if you're lonely in some specific zone, you will have also your stress going up and everything.
Hello, I'm Milan, I do marketing. So two things for me. First, I don't see the horror thing right now in your game. It's not because you have monsters that it's an horror game. So I would love to see more about the ambient, the sounds, what will make you kind of tenses and afraid when you are playing it. And I think this is not here yet. And the second remark is more about the period monster. I think it's great, but be careful to not fall into the cliché that it's dirty, because it's quite common. So I would love to see a design of a monster evoking period, but without the dirty thing that you have right now on screen. So, yeah.
Thank you for your feedback. It's a really tricky question for the team to define where we stand in the horror genre. I think we are more of a horrific game than a horror, classic horror with a jump scare and everything. And we want to, when we discussed it as a team, we were talking a lot of anxiety, tension, and more implicit, in uncomforting emotions. I don't know if it's answering the first question.
Yeah, it is. Just maybe you should not start with we have a horror asymmetrical game if it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we wrote horrific and we said horror because it was something for the last presentation. But thank you. And for the period monster, it's sad that Clémentine left at this moment. I think the metaphor of monster is also a way to, how to say, to, it's like you stand, you embrace the monster figure. Like, I think when you have periods, if people live that, you can feel by society as a monster sometimes. And if you're from a minority, sometimes you also are treated like as a freak. And we were more talking about it as a way to reapproprier. I don't know how to say, sorry. So re-embrace, thank you, the idea of the monster. But of course we will be careful, and our art team have in mind the idea of not doing too cliché.
No, super. Hi, and also in order to install a horrific staging, we are aware that our goal is to not show directly the monster, but to try to do storyboard settings when we show, we build up her presence in the environment step by step, and trying to have some step by step settings for her, and not showing her directly in the beginning.
Hello, Aida del Solar. I'm going to bounce on this. Just give me 2-3 minutes. I just came from the other side of the world, from Argentina, where there is a big market of games and international, but done in Argentina about games and animation. And I was in a panel, was the most important panel at that moment. It was Phantasmagoria is between horror and terror subjects. And what was very interesting is that this question today in the actuality we have, we are very, very, very uncomfortable to make a choice in politics, in actuality, in gender, in whatever. We are in a time where we cannot stand up and say, I am for that. We are very scared about this because it's moving so fast. And I think we are not old enough to know what happened or how it happened in other times of humanity, but we are crossing this in this moment. You read actuality, is like this. So the big question in Argentina was at the end, final question, what is the difference between terror and horror? And to make it short, terror can be many, many shapes. Horror is what you cannot express anymore. Horror is what you cannot show anymore. Horror is what you cannot choose anymore. Terror, you can make animations and things and boo, but horror is the unexplainable and unsaid things. So in animation, it is the best thing is not to show anything, is to evoke it. So in your subject, which is very actual and very interesting, I think that if you say that it's horror, you make a good choice. But the choice is also how to work artistically and in narrative and with a psychologist in the non-said things. Because this is the most anxiousness resource we have. So I think you are in a good way, but not. You have to learn how to show what you need to choose what not to show and evoke this, and yes, everywhere in gender, in love, in politics, we are crossing through a line which is maybe not new, but for us, our world now, it is. So this game is very interesting about making a shape about that and taking a decision about this. So and it's a non-said thing, and it can be very arty to work into the non-said things and to play into the non-said things. So don't try to explain everything. Try to just make us get it. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you. So let's congratulate the team once again. And let's welcome the next one, the final one of this morning, Run Out. So please encourage them too. Thanks.
A solitary day, the phone rings ominously, breaking the silence like a mournful toll. A voice on the line delivers the chilling news of your grandfather's recent demise, leaving you as the sole heir to the family manor. Disconnected from your family for what feels like an eternity, this sudden call is a haunting echo from a forgotten past. The voice, laden with secrets, murmurs a cryptic invitation to rendezvous, to pass on the keys to the estate, beckoning you into a realm of suffused with mystery and foreboding. Upon the designated day, the man emerges as the custodian of the estate. Though estranged from the house for an eternity, his presence guides you into the mansion's embrace to commence the tour. The visit proceeds seamlessly, yet an unsettling sensation creeps beneath your skin upon revisiting this long-forgotten domain. The man gestures you for ascent upstairs, leading you to a precipice of emotions as you stand before your grandfather's chamber. Crossing the threshold, a palpable silence envelops the room, heavy with unspoken truths. Before a word can escape your lips, the caretaker ominously seals the door behind you, enclosing you in a chamber with untold mysteries. Even the windows refuse to budge, complete silence. The man remains unresponsive. After a few moments in the darkness, the Super 8 projector suddenly illuminates. Next to the machine lies a reel, and soon enough, it becomes apparent that what unfolds on the reels mirrors your surroundings.
So, Runout is a first-person horror game with the time manipulation and Super 8 found footage style, playable on PC around and the game will 3 hours long. Will be 3 hours long. Sorry. In Runout, we are trapped in the mansion by a mysterious man. Thanks to a video recording, we can gradually make our way through the mansion in order to escape, because every door opened in those videos also opens in the present. The main gameplay loop is composed of 2 phases. The first one is a free roaming phase in the area we have access to, while identifying the next obstacle to overcome and looking for the next reel. The player can come across some lore. It is a safe zone. The second one is a survival phase and take place in the past through the reading of tapes. For the 3 Cs, the game is playable with mouse and keyboard in the FPS view, and player embody a weak character that cannot fight back enemy.
The game was consolidated by our work on the target. We defined it on the basis of our assumptions, which we then went on to verify with real horror game enthusiasts. This gave us information on how they play, why they play, and what they don't like and we should avoid in our game.
So regarding our core intentions, we wanted to make a survival horror experience. So our main intentions were to induce fear thanks to the atmosphere and the situations we put the players in. So we don't want to rely on jump scares or screamers. We want the players to feel and to play with risk and doubt. So we designed situations where it's a lot filled with doubt, and we want to also to play with visible and invisible threats. So regarding the immersion, we want the game to be quite immersive. So we have a camera point of view. We have photorealistic assets and Super 8 filter relative to the Super 8 we use to record the gameplay. And we also have realistic camera movements. And regarding the gameplay, we want to have systemic creatures which are very strong. It means that players would have to constantly flee these monsters. So we need fluid navigation, and we want mid-open level design to achieve this fluid navigation.
Regarding the game flow, in this chapter, we're gonna develop the two phases a little bit more. And these two phases will play into one another, as surviving and resolve objectives in the recording will help the character to progress in the present. In the present, player will understand better what's going on in the building and find new real on their own.
So for the past phase, it's the survival horror phase. So the player will have to achieve objectives in the past. So through the lens of Super 8 camera, so it was filmed by a previous person. So in the level design, in the manner, the players will be faced with 2 to 3 enemies that has unique abilities and that are meant to synergize. So for instance, we have 2 creatures designed, 2 monsters. So the first one is Mimic, as its name might suggest it. It works a little bit like a ward. So it disguises as a piece of furniture, and its role is to surprise the player in their progression through the level design, and to slow them down. So it would be important because behind them will be the roamer, so quite basic creatures that just follows the players when they see them. And so this monster will put a constant light pressure. So in the level design, you might encounter monsters. If they catch you, you die. And the reel is over, you have to restart it. However, you have a tool, thanks to the Super 8, you have the ability to rewind, to replay an event to your advantage. However, it's a consumable resource, and if you run out, if you deplete this resource, and you get caught by a monster, it's game over. You really have to restart the reel in this case. However, if you manage to achieve all of the reel's objectives, you will go back in the present phase, where you will have consequently unlocked new rooms to explore. So it's a safe zone, it's a pacing tool to relieve the tension of the past phases. And in this present phase, you will have to find the next obstacle that locks you, the next reel to help you unlock you. But doing so, you will also be able to explore more lore about the manor and understand who is the man who kidnapped you, who is your grandfather, or things like that.
Okay, regarding the progression system and the difficulty, as we said earlier, at the start of the game, the player begins by being trapped in a room in which there is a video reel. Launching it dropped the player in the past gameplay phase. These gameplay phases in the video are more like levels. You have one objective to complete, and monsters are tracking you down. For the example of the first past phase, the player encounter only one monster. Completing the objective in the video allows the main character to unlock more rooms in the mansion. In these new rooms, there is another video reel that will launch the next phase of the game, in which there is another monsters, and it is the same story again. The completing objective gives access to more rooms and new reels, in which there is even more monsters. The idea behind it is that the more the player progresses through the mansion, the more the player progresses through the story of the place, and the more the phases in the tapes, in the reels, become filled with danger.
For the artistic direction, the game will take place in a Victorian-style mansion. We want to focus on a stereotypical place, such as a mansion, because it's kind of conventional place to depict horror, and we find it interesting to add our own vision to it. We want the place to be full of history and play with size of the rooms to create different atmospheres. As the place might be huge, we will also play on several floors and create slightly different ambiances to make it easier for the player to know exactly where he is. As player needs to be able to find their way around easily, we focused on level art and lighting by creating different blockouts of rooms. Later on, we will work together with level designers to connect every blocks and work on navigation and asset placement. As we play through the lens of a Super 8 camera, we have to convince this feeling. So we made Super 8 camera effect by mixing some effects such as bloom, color grading, or a Super 8 framing.
We also added camera movement to give a realistic way to move, such as head bobbing, camera wheeling, and camera lag. All these effects can be reduced and deactivated for a more pleasant experience. The where and where effect must be clearly identifiable and have a visual impact on the camera. So we decided that the more rewind is used, the more the wheel will heat up and melt and create holes in the wheel. As we already have a lot of effects on the camera, we decided to apply this effect directly on the surfaces of the environment. Setting up these effects by hand would have been very time-consuming, so we created a hole spawner that handles effect placement automatically.
Regarding the audio intentions of our game, we have three main pillars. The first one is immersion. As realism is not always synonymous with immersion, it's not really a given that it will be realistic, but we will take the advantage of the old recording gear aesthetic, and we will try to have real props sound recordings in order to explore the theme of past and present. Also, the implementation of systems should be seamless for realism and therefore immersion. Pretty much like the physics of the game, which, while not being extremely accurate, should be a tool for the players to survive the hostile mansion. For example, we will have 3D localization of the sound and the use of dynamic curves, attenuation and filtering, as well as reverb zones. And on accessibility side note, we will have a wheel of sound that will be displayed on the screen. Also, the second point is the analog horror aspect, which allows us to use a horror vocabulary that already exists, and we will try to talk to the player through this vocabulary. And sorry for that, just that my text is quite long. Non, moi j'ai rien touché. Okay, bon. Okay, so sorry, the PowerPoint just crashed for a second. Sorry. So yeah, so analog horror or vocabulary, meaning low fidelity sounds with analog artifacts, and we will also use the analog horror effects as a tool to create tension.
through the use of it in an interactive way. Finally, the final pillar will be subtlety. We will use sound as a narrative tool to talk about the environment, dimension, and tell a story about it, as well as talk about the story of the monsters, because we don't want them just to be creatures. And as you've been able to see in the video, we'd like to create tension through silence and ambiances and lack thereof, using realistic reverbs, etc. Ça marche plus non plus.
So while designing the rewind system, we needed to be a fluid tool for the player as it provides information that impacts gameplay and survival. We then needed to store things like actor positions, animations used and game states in real time for multiple actors. As it needed to be a precise rewind, we also needed to record this information frequently. This can take up a lot of memory and a lot of performance depending on the number of actors that are involved. And this could quickly become a problem if not anticipated. So to solve this issue, we decided to reduce the frequency of the data recordings, then lerp between them to obtain a result at any time between recorded instances.
Okay, so the rewind of the sound has been a true challenge, as to guarantee immersion, we chose to truly put every sound in reverse instead of putting a single rewind sound over it. So we had to keep track of the progress of every sound at every moment, since the player could rewind at any time. We developed an architecture for this, storing every sound and calculating their progress over time to make sure to launch their reverse version in due time when they ended in the past. The last challenge of it resides in WISE, with which we have yet to communicate and move the playback head for sounds that are currently in progress when the rewind begins.
So the vertical slice will feature early gameplay elements in order to introduce all these complex mechanics. We already have the rewind mechanic and the motion sickness or other accessibility features developed and integrated. We are working on the creatures. We already have one, but it still needs some improvement. And the macro goals, the objectives in the gameplay phases. The two slight variations of level design and actually level design itself, even if though we have a block out of all the rooms, it's still too early in the work in progress phase to properly say it's a work in progress. As well as the phase in the present with all the lore explanation, item expositions that will come. So very quickly, for the sake of time, vertical slice is supposed to be, it's planned to be 25 minutes of play, and we want the game to last 3 hours. So even though planning is more complex than that, we believe that some of the research phase will simply convert into polishing and debugging and playtesting loop. So it's about the same time. The production is considered to be about 15 months and to end in July 1st, 2025. And release is expected to be Halloween of next year. For the budgeting, the vertical slice is expected to be, is estimated at 64,000 euro for wages only. This comes from the SNJV barometer estimation, and therefore the full release should be of 480k, meaning about 500,000 for 17 months project. Target price is 15 euros, and therefore including the discounts, the Steam share and the publisher share, break-even is expected to be reached at 160 copies sold. And we would be glad to answer all of your questions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Who wants to start with the questions, remarks? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Thomas. I'm a 3D artist. Thank you for the presentation. It was quite solid. I have one remark and one question. The remark is that it's very cool that you have implemented a way to deactivate the head bobbing and stuff like that. But even as an avid first-person games consumer, I think that it's really, really intense. And it made me a bit uncomfortable to see so much camera movement, even though I'm really I play these games. So I think it might be wise to tone it down a little. But that's just my opinion about that. And for the 3D art aspect, I think your blockouts are looking really, really nice with the great variety in styles, but how will you fit it with the 3D models? In fact, because for your first presentation, there was mega scans, but how can you make so much variety in 3D in the short time you have to level out cleanly these space? Thanks.
Yes, just before just about the motion sickness. It wasn't clear to me. Did you mention were you talking about the presentation or when you played last time?
No. In the presentation right now,
Okay.
I felt a bit,
Yes.
a little bit sick.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, so it reflects how it is right at the moment. I get sick too, and so we're working on it. But at least we have managed to, you can toggle off or even sometimes, choose the intensity of it.
So for the level art part, we will rely a lot on modular assets with a triplanar workflow, with also masks on the texture. So yeah, we want to reuse a lot of different elements, but like as we want to have several floors, we will try to create different atmosphere, different kind of architectures. For example, at the first level, there will be like wood panels to say to the player he's at the first level. At the second level, we will try to play more on wallpapers on the wall, and try to kind of create different atmosphere through post-process and lighting, more than a lot of different assets.
Thank you. Good luck, because it's a big mention, and I look forward to seeing Arted. Thanks.
Hello again. I'm still Clémentine Plissonnier, freelance game designer. I had a question. I had multiple questions, but I'm gonna take one for here, and the others I will talk to you about later. My question is about mainly your main game loop. I think you worked a lot about this game loop, because last time it was a bit more not sure and stuff. I think I would like to see maybe on your plateau project, or I don't know, but I would like to see more examples of situations and like objectives that you can have for each reel, because for now it's not very clear. So I think the examples were just about not interacting but just navigating. So maybe it's finding a place or opening a door, I don't know, but yeah. I would like to see more of that, because as I told the other group, Monster Inside, finding examples of situations helps you test your mechanics and make sure that they can be repeated and have variation. And especially because you talked about 25 minutes of vertical slice, which is very long. And that's okay if you can do it perfect, but yeah, you need to have the gameplay propositions to do that, okay? So maybe try to scenarize a few things like, in this situation, I must reach a door. In this situation, I must trap the monster, I don't know. Try to find these, and I think it would be a great demonstration of the strength of your game design, okay? You don't need to respond if you don't have anything.
Hello, Lucille from Cnam-Enjmin. I was appealed by the 25 minutes vertical slice. That's not a vertical slice. That's a remark, and that's also something that will help you later. You are aiming for too high and too many. Expect that during a presentation you will have so less time to for us to see your game playing. So try to make more interaction, even in a single room, and very polished it. It will be helping us to see what the full game will look like. You will explain it, and we don't need to see 5 rooms or even levels during the mention. If you are on the first floor, it's okay. So be careful about that. You are aiming for very much time on assets. That's a really big warning for me as a producer.
Yes, thank you for your advice, and thank you for giving me argument to put down the production.
Hello, still Gaston. Yes, I had a question regarding the rewind mechanic, because last time in the last presentation you had we had many remarks about it, and you had many ways to go between having the players to be able to move during it, or objects to rewind or not, monsters to rewind or not, etc., etc. And I was really curious, why did you choose to go that way? Because what I understood is that everything is rewinding and everything is kind of stuck in the rewind process. So that's my first question. I have another one regarding the rewind mechanic, but.
So if I understand well your question, you're asking why the rewind now rewinds everything, and
yeah.
Because before we had another kind that, for example, the player would not be affected by the rewind. Or
yeah, exactly. I was just curious, like.
Yes. So the answer is basically that for technical reasons, it was a huge technical challenge. Especially for sound, to take this apart, like not to make them all together. Should I say it again in English? So it's easier, basically, to make it for sound, that everything in the scene gets rewinded.
Okay, so it was more like a technical constraint?
Yeah, well, that's,
okay.
Of course, was the necessary condition, the sufficient condition, but also for a more like we had many challenges, so we wanted to put a focus, even on game design, we needed to put the priority with other challenges instead of this one. That is too much of a, like, we believe that the game didn't need this KSP because we already had other ones.
Okay, makes sense.
Just to give you a little more information on that, we also tested the game with the rewind that didn't affect the player. And in fact, the players used it as a invisibility button. They zoomed in and keep the button pressed and just walked past the monster. So.
Okay, no, but it makes sense. For sure, it was a bigger challenge in terms of design and user experience. And my other question about the rewind mechanics was about how it works exactly. Like you said, it was a resource. Is it like a gauge that depletes, or is it like some consumables? I have 3 rewinds in the level, and after I cannot rewind anymore?
So you have a, I didn't get the question.
As you said, it's just like a gauge that decreases gradually when you use it. It's more like you destroy. It was like you destroy the film reel when you use it.
Okay.
And when you don't have enough rewind, it's the end of the game.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have other questions, remarks?
Hi. Just to finish, I think you have a very beautiful evoking system, because I think we can find with this very past thing as Super 8 things that they are not full. We have the biggest full view in our times, so Super 8 is kind of concealing things because we don't see very clearly things. So this you have to take profit of that. Is what is not said, what cannot be shown because we don't have the details, and this is playing a very nice role in the shape of horror. Maybe it can be hidden. You can give also hidden sound witnesses of people that is only the sound is fitting with our imagination, because Super 8 is lots of imagination for our generations. So it's just evoking things. I think if you want to work in horror, it's more evoke than show. And it will work in our brain is very, very good for that. So evoke, don't show, because your aesthetic is going there, and maybe the sound can be it can be also some cassette files where you hear some sound that you can fit them somewhere in the space. You don't know where. You have sound, you have image, but they are not synchronized, and this can be create many narratives about the same thing, and it's scary. Thank you.
Thank you for this remark. I talked about it earlier, yesterday, and I think it would be great to use sound as a narrative tool, especially if we're able to hide some voice lines. And I was thinking of having voice lines playing in reverse when you're playing in the normal way. And once you're rewinding, you might be able to understand what the voice line is, and as a narrative tool, it could be interesting. And I'm pretty sure that as a design tool, it could be useful as well. It's something I've started to experiment on my own, but it's definitely something that I'd like to experience, to try more.
And as you are a little bit vintage also, I suggest to see as for example, The Exorcist, the evil character was speaking in reverse mode. That was very evilish, you know. So maybe we can also edit this journey for ourselves to make it more scary. So at the end of the game, we can see also how other people shaped this horror thing their way, because horror is an interpretation. We are not making a thesis about that. It's very, very organic. So it can be interesting in case of what you want to provoke into the player. Thank you.
Do you have other questions, remark? We have time for a last one. Yeah.
Hi, so Jan, musician and godfather. So one of the two entities in your game was a mimic, and the piano in the video, I suppose, is the mimic. It just jumps at you, and I'm wondering what is the For instance, you said that you didn't want any jump scare, and it's not exactly a jump scare, but having everyday objects jumps at me can feel like a jump scare to some extent. So I'm wondering what is the expected behavior of these mimics?
Okay, so this is one of the questions I feared the most because, in this really short demo of what we've done so far, it's difficult to instill a feeling of fear without relying on jump scares. And one of the great things with the two creatures we are going to work on, so the mimic and the roaming creatures that we don't talk about yet, it is the fact that fear is going to be induced really on a long time window. So here, to try and display the fear aspect of the game, we kind of had to rely on this jump scare effect. But this is something we're aware of, and so we are trying not to reproduce that in the game.
Just to add, to basically say the same, but in a slight different way. What we're trying to do is to have an experience where the player has an horror pressure and unease feeling all along of the playthrough, and so we are hoping to balance the mimic mechanic that could be like we thought about it. It could be like some sort of a screamer, but with our sound designer, we hope that there are ways to minimize the screamer effect and to maximize with the rest of the manor ambience and the other creatures that also put pressure, that are not there. It's not a direct menace, but it could be there. And even maybe during the demo you could hear some of sorts of screams that are part of the mimic mechanic itself. That because it's far away, but we can start to feel its presence ahead of time. And so we are slowly getting into the horror and trying to understand where this menace would come from, and we hope this would balance the screamer effect. That it's not what we're trying to do.
Thank you. But do you like if you weren't rewinding at this moment in the video, would you imagine that the piano would chase you around or something? Or no, it's just a one shot thing.
So far, the piano itself wouldn't chase you. But there are thoughts of having another creature to not be affected by this rewind. Maybe you could, if you want to, if you feel like.
In fact, we have designed two monsters right now. There is one which is chasing you, which is almost implemented, and the other one is a mimic, so the one we are discussing right now. And right now, its behavior is more of crowd control behavior, even though there are no crowd, but it's meant to maybe slow down the player and notice the other monster that the player is in this room. So it would put pressure on the player because he would be slowed down, but also chased by the other monster that knows exactly where the player is. And consequently, we hope for situations where the player notices that the roamer is close to them, but also notices that there is a mimic, because we intend to put a slight graphic hint on a piece of furniture that is possessed by the mimic. And so maybe the player would see something strange and just be full of doubt because they would have to think quick and to decide if they want to continue in this direction, maybe triggering the mimic, or if they have time to just go back and try to find another route to go to their objective. And so that's where the design is right now. However, we really need to have a level design first to be sure about it. So that's why we didn't extend too much on the mimic, because we have other designs in the case where it's not sufficient. We have designs that are more kind of aggressive. They are not screamers, but they are more aggressive. It would be the mimic that chases you, but not in a very fast fashion. So we will see with the tests. We have several combinations of monsters' behavior to test. So as we don't have a lot of time, we took the most simple one, and we will see by iteration if it's sufficient. If it's not, as it's very simple to develop, we think that we would have time to improve it.
Thank you. I think we can congratulate the team once again. Thanks to all the teams of this morning. This was the last for this morning. So we will have a break, lunch break, and then after we're gonna have time to go see the teams directly at their workplace in the Plateau Projet. So we will start again at 2. Thanks for the people online as well. So we will meet here again at 2 for the people online. Thank you. Thank you for the jury here. And we do have the lunch which awaits us. I think it's downstairs. We're going to see that. Thanks again, and congrats to all the teams of this morning.